Hey everyone, I just wanted to let you know about this video here. The audio is not that great. It's not terrible, but it's not that great. The camera that was supposed to pick up the audio didn't pick it up, so I had to use the other camera too and use the audio from that. So at some points you might not be able to hear me, but most of the way through, like 99.9% of the way you can. So it's definitely worth a watch. There's lots of good information in there, and I didn't want to dump all the footage, so here you go. Enjoy. All right. So what we have here is a Canadian 335, and these are the precursors to the 321 series, which looks pretty much the same except they have the Easy Light system. And in fact, I happen to have one of those right here. So they look a little different in the knob department. These basically you turn a half turn to light and then another quarter turn to burn, and that's it, it's done. But these have O-rings and stuff there that you have to kind of take care of, but it's still an awesome lantern. So this one here has the valve system on it, much like the conventional 220s, 228s and stuff like that, the 200 series that we're all used to seeing. And I just received this, well, not too long ago, from a fellow. I got a good deal on it, and it's intended to be a user, so shipped here without the globe. We're going to do a little looky-loo at it, see what we can see, maybe a little bit of a cleanup job on the collar here, and get it looking nice, and that way we'll have a good user out of it. So one of the first things I do when I get something like this, I want to make sure everything works. So yep, this valve turns, the tip cleaner moves, that's great. Have this all the way shut. I'll give it a pump. Oh yeah, it holds pressure. And when he sent it to me, he says, yeah, it works. So I says, okay, cool. So I don't expect to have a whole lot to worry about. And the fuel cap washer on it feels like it's got some resistance. I mean, I can feel it have a little bit of spring in the gasket. So that's all good. So far, no replacement parts needed whatsoever, other than obviously the mantle and ding, ding, ding. Well, the lack of ding is the globe, but that's all right. We got one of those too. So next thing we'll do is kind of check to see how how it holds pressure and how the check valve is working. So we're going to give this about 20 pumps or something like that, and we're going to listen. I don't seem to hear anything. Make sure I've got that all the way open. I don't feel any pushback or any sort of leakage, although I think I hear a little bit of air. Let's see if they shut this and it goes away. Yep, hear a tiny bit of air. So what that means we're going to do is that we're going to dump the pressure, and we're going to pull the check valve, of course, which we have not done on this channel before. So this will be something kind of fun. I have a check valve removal tool. If you're going to remove check valves, I definitely suggest that you get a check valve removal tool, because if you don't have one of those, okay, sorry about that. A little bit of a battery failure on the camera number one. So hopefully, if you're looking at why we're having weird continuity errors, that's why. Anyway, so we just talked about removing the check valve. So I've just taken off this clip here, and next I'll go ahead and unscrew this to make it easy to pull out, and then just pull the entire valve assembly out in one go. And got a little bit of a bend on the air stem here. We can probably, it may have been actually done to facilitate a little easier installation, but we can probably go ahead and move that back. But for right now, what we're interested in, getting the check valve out. So looking at the end of this, it tells me I need the small thread, and so there's two different types that come. The kit that I got, or the tool that I got, came from old Coleman parts, and even though they don't sponsor this channel, I recommend everyone go there because they have a tremendous selection of parts. Without Mike, this probably would be a whole lot different hobby. So at any rate, it says two ends to it. It has the narrow end, it has the wide end, and then it has the large and small screws for the check valve. So this one uses a small one. So what I'm going to do is thread that in there. And this just makes the whole check valve thing, the removal, so easy. I don't tighten it all the way down because then it's just easier to remove the rod when it's done. So I tighten all the way down and I back it off just a tiny bit, like not even a quarter turn. Always start with the larger tooth first, because if it fits in there, that's the one you want to use. I can feel it skating over these, so we're going to switch to the smaller end. And see how that locks down in there. Feels pretty good. And then I'm going to screw this collar and the wing nut on. You want to make sure this is tight. If it keeps tightening, that means that it's pulling itself down into the slot. So once it stops moving like that, then you know you've pulled all the way down in. Sometimes those slots will have crud in them, and that will not allow you to get it all the way in. So 5/8 wrench, throw down here, and out it comes. As easy as that. So it comes out super easy, and this is really the only way to fly in terms of making these things work like that. And yeah, so it comes right out. We can see that we got it all the way down into the grooves. And so what I'll do now is basically unscrew this, pull all these ends off, and this is why I don't tighten it down real tight, because now this comes off very easy. I can hear it moving around in there a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to throw the ultrasonic for a bit, and probably, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, and then we'll come back. And of course, I won't run that while we're doing this because it's terribly noisy. So, we'll see you in just a little bit. Okay, so we've run this here for about 5 minutes. It should be nice and loose in there, cleaned up. I'm going to go ahead, just going to dry that off a bit. I'm going to hit it with a little bit of curb cleaner to flush out any water that's sitting in there. And that should be good. The other thing that I do is that I've got a nail that I've ground off kind of flat, and just in case the seat isn't completely mated to the ball anymore, I'll just take and you may or may not be able to see this, we'll try doing it here a little bit more visibly, but I just put the flat part of the nail on this and I give it a tap, because it's soft brass, maybe another one, and so that kind of helps make that seating surface a little bit more rounded if it's got any kind of gotten out of shape over the years. Maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't, I don't know, but that's what I do. So we'll screw this back in. We'll get that out in post. And then install this back on here. And this allows me to kind of illustrate what I think happens when people use a check valve removal tool and they wreck a check valve. And this is a great example of it. If you look here, hopefully that'll be close enough of a focus. If not, then maybe you'll try it in this one here for a moment and see how it looks. But if you can look, it's not fully seated in there. And sometimes these have been boogered up in the past. They don't seat all the way in, and people push it in there. Okay, it stops. They screw it down. Okay, that's good. And then they proceed to cranking, and they've only engaged like the top part of the slot. Now, as I was saying earlier, if you screw this down and it still feels a little bit soft, keep cranking until you feel it bottom out. And when you feel it bottom out and you can't tighten it anymore, you'll see that is now fully seated in there. So that is the way to make sure that you don't wreck a check valve. I have not I have not wrecked one yet, and I have pulled out some ones that look pretty bad. So we'll just go ahead, screw this right back in, and look for my wrench. All it needs is a little bit of a tweak to make sure that it's tight. That feels pretty good. And then, now that I've had to kind of drive that one down in there, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge to get off, right? Because this is kind of stuck down in there. So what you want to do is actually take your wing nut with a flat surface, screw it back on backwards, so you have a flat surface, because you need to hit it with a hammer, and you don't want to hit the end of that rod with a hammer because you'll distort the threads and it won't screw on. So a couple of whacks and it'll come right out, and then everything is good to go and not damaged by your you haven't fixed it till it's broke, right? So that's all that. So let's get this rod back in here. While the camera was off, I tapped this straight and flattened it out some so it's not quite as bent as it was, so hopefully this should go in there nice and easy. And then we'll get this leather. The leather was in fine shape, no problems, no need for any extra lube. Make sure we can screw that all the way in like it's supposed to. Yep, that feels good. We'll get the clip back on here. That there, that there, that's nice, that works good. Screw that down, screw that down. Let's see what we got. Totally silent. I don't feel anything. And do this very lightly. If you press down hard, you can make it kick back, because you'll kind of dislodge that ball and then it'll blow some air back, and that kind of gives you a false reading. You just do it very lightly, or like I said, just put it up to your ear and listen. So anyway, that's that part done. What I'm going to do now, since we can get this really easy, and I love working on these single nut type lanterns, is we're going to take this off, and we're going to give the collar a little bit of a clean up, because it looks like it could use a little bit of loving. So 7/16 inch wrench takes this right off. That's loose. Here, this comes right out. Set that aside. I should be able to, see, this is, I think we may have to go with a metric for this. Nope, half-inch works. So take the generator off. It's out there like they mean it. Get that off of here. Okay, see what we can see inside of here. See if this needs any attention. Can't really see anything very well. I could feel it kind of dragging a little bit, but I think it should still be fine. I wish I had a little better light, because then I could see if there's anything I can pull out. So let's try that. Needle still looks like it's in good shape. Just try not to get that confused with the other one I've got there. And there is a spring down there. I'm not sure if I can hook it. Let's see if I can. And let's see. Well, the spring doesn't really want to come out. And I really don't want to force it, because when I've done that in the past, I managed to come up with just a small piece of spring, which is unfortunate. And I would like to get this one running today, and I think this is not going to be anything that's going to keep it from running. But this may need a little bit of work with some a little heat and quench routine to be able to clean it out, because yeah, I got it hooked, but it doesn't want to come. So we're not going to fix that one till it's broke, so we're going to leave it. And then we're going to just remove this collar here. Same kind of way, just kind of pinch and pull, off she comes. Take a look underneath here. There's a little bit of rust, a little bit of, looks to be some oil underneath there, but nothing serious, nothing major. Valve looks good, everything else looks really nice. This collar just needs a bit of mother's polish on it to make it look a little bit nicer. So that is done so quickly that it's just hard for me not to do it whenever I have one of these come along. And the results are really pretty nice. So just a quick little rub it up, scrub it up here, and we'll see how it cleans up. Like I've said before on these, you don't really want to go completely crazy on cleaning these up, because they've always had a utility type finish on them. They're never meant to be really, really shiny. So all I'm trying to do is remove a little bit of oxidation. I also make sure that when I do this, I go with the grain of the metal. And the metal is always going to be grained horizontally on these. It never goes vertically, which makes it easy for kind of polishing this out, because that's just the natural way you want to polish. So never do this. Always do this. And hopefully, since it's easier, that'll just be the way that you normally do it anyway. So as I've shown on these before, it takes very little time to give this just a really quick little scrub, and it'll look a lot nicer. It'll get some of that dirt and crud off of it, and it'll look good, which is kind of what we want. But you know, like I've said too, you don't want to do it so much that you remove all of the character of its years of service. I gotta go fetch another paper towel here. And then just gonna clean this off. So again, get your hands cleaned off, and then just kind of start to buff it and clean them. Yeah, that's nice. It looks good. Not so much that it looks new, but enough that it looks like it's some care has been taken with it. Right? That's all you kind of want. You know, I go out antique picking, excuse me, on the weekends and stuff like that. So we usually end up at Airbnbs across Texas, and I always have to bring a lantern because we usually end up cooking at night. It's outside. The lighting out there is questionable at best. So I always bring a lantern because, well, hey, you know, if I got lanterns, why wouldn't I use them? And it's always nice to go out there and bring a nice one out. Occasionally you'll run into the host. They take a look at that and they go, wow, that's really cool. And I'm like, yeah, it is pretty cool. I really like the way they look, and it's nice to have one in nice shape to kind of show off. So I didn't really clean the inside of this really well, so I'm just tracking the polish around. So I'm going to do this again real quick. But we're almost done. And just for a few minutes of effort, you really get something that looks really, really nice. I mean, yeah, that looks really good. And you can still see the original grain of the metal in there, which is great. Everything is really easy to read. It looks good. Yeah, so, yeah, it's getting warm here in the shop, but here, now you can see, you can actually read it pretty easy, and it looks good. So, yeah, it's worth the little bit of investment. I also sometimes like to kind of polish the pricker knobs a little bit too, just because the brass looks nice, and it takes, again, seconds to get that done. And they actually hold a polish for a while, because since you use them frequently, they'll stay shiny. All right, so let's get this together and get this thing lit, huh? So put this on here. That gets snapped back down over it. Get our generator back in. Hopefully she's gonna play nice with this. Make sure I get that down the middle. There we go. Yeah, I'm hoping that the amount of force that I had to use to unloosen this isn't indicative of any kind of leaks that it experienced in the past. So I'm going to kind of spin this flange around a little bit, so if there's any dirt on there, kind of wear it down a little bit. Probably could have been better served to wipe it clean, but we're kind of blasting through this one here. When I get it lit up and see how she looks. So there's that. I'm not going to do anything with the base down here, mainly because this is it's chrome plated steel. It's got a bit of rust on it. There's not much we're going to do for it. So originally it used to look like so, and now it looks like that. That's the way it goes. It's not really going to ever look any better. So I'm not going to really spend a lot of effort on getting it to look really nice or anything. So I'll take a look, see how that sits on there. Sits pretty good. Nut back on. Feels pretty secure. So yeah, next thing we need to do is get a mantle on it. And for this, I actually have the real 99 mantles. Ta-da! So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably take my gloves off because they're a bit difficult to tie with them on. And so we'll just set this here. But we're not too far from being a lot up, huh? Okay. So to do these, and I had said here in the past, I said, you know, you can tie or just a regular overhand knot or a surgeon's knot. And for those of you who aren't exactly sure what that is, and I don't have a really short piece of string here, maybe I can use this piece of weed whacker line. For a regular kind of knot, what you would do, you just take it like this, cross it, and then just go over. So this is what's referred to as just a regular overhand knot. I said you can tie a surgeon's knot if it doesn't hold tight for you. So all that is that you go around once like you would for an overhand, and then you just go around again. So now you have this, it's doubled, and you use that to tie down. And that is it's actually a great way for tying packages and stuff like that up because it kind of self-jams, and then when you tie a knot on top of it, it's never going anywhere. I usually find with the Coleman mantles that the strings on them have enough grip on each other that I haven't had to tie a surgeon's knot on there. But nonetheless, a good knot to have in your repertoire if you're out there camping and you're running short and on hands and you're trying to tie something up. So yeah, like I said, regular overhand knot here. And you know, sometimes I'll do exactly this. I'll tie that knot while it's not on the burner, and then I'll just go ahead and pull it up on there. Sometimes that's easier. Depends on how much clearance you got. In this case, it looks like I'm just having a hard time both ways. Anyway, so that's it. It's all in the groove. Looking to make sure that we've got the folds relatively evenly dispersed. Tie that snug, and we'll give it another overhand knot on top, and that's good. Get my clippers. I'm gonna clip off the extra ends. Again, when you do these, you always want to make sure you clip these ends off. They do not burn off, and if they end up laying on top of your globe, then you will end up with a mark on your globe that you'll never get off. So you want to make sure it's all trimmed. Okay, so we got the flat side towards the generator. We're going to go ahead and burn the mantle. Again, I've heard people talk about do this with only a match because everything else will make it turn black. Well, you know, when it burns, it's going to turn black. So I don't really understand that. So I just kind of make sure that it all gets all lit off and does its thing. Don't breathe the smoke. I've got about I don't know, probably 15, 18 feet of clearance up here, and then that goes to a roof vent, so I won't have any problems with that. One other thing that I didn't really do when I had that off is that I didn't run my normal tool up inside of here. I probably should have done that. The vendor did tell me that it was working when he sold it to me, so I'll just take his word at that it doesn't have any clogs in there. But hey, if we end up with the yellow flame, then that would be a lesson that yep, you should have done that instead of just going straight to burning the mantle on there. So the next thing we want to do, sometimes you can kind of hurry this along a little bit with the torch if it's not wanting to cooperate. So we'll just kind of give it a little bit of a boost here and get it going. So, right, so there's that. So the next thing we need is a globe, and which luckily I have ordered and got here courtesy of, again, old Coleman parts. And so that way we get a globe. You can't get a globe for 335 or 321 in the United States. They're Canadian globe, so you got to get it from somewhere else, or old Coleman parts. He stocks them, so that way you can get them from him. Kind of looking at my vent here, just knocking a little bit of dust off of it. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to give it a scrub-a-dub here, but I don't know, it looks pretty good. And we'll probably just go ahead and throw it on. Hope for the best. Right. So that's in the slots. We're going to get these in the holes like that. Now what we need is fuel. So I have a bottle that I keep here on the bench. It's labeled old, because this goes between all sorts of different lanterns, and because as I work on them, I'll fill them up, and when I'm done working with them, if they're not going to go to be put into the rotation to be used, I just go ahead and I dump them out, and then fill the bottle back up. And I always run it through the filter here, so that way any kind of crud that comes out gets filtered out, because when you're dumping out old lanterns, there can be a lot of crud that comes out. So, yeah, for sure. Okay, set that here. And I'm getting close to the moment of truth. Right. Okay, that's good and tight. We're going to go ahead and give this, give it 30 pumps, see how it goes. Maybe a couple extra, right? Let's turn it on and listen for the spit. There it is. And try lighting this one with a match that I got laying around here, because why not? So this obviously knows that we're on camera and it doesn't want to work. Okay, there we go. Good. Alrighty then. Let's see what we get. Ha! Plugged up almost immediately. Should have known better to shake my match out. So it's not uncommon. So what's happened is that there's some crud in the tip, and that's going to do that probably a couple times since I moved it. So we may actually have to go to just applying the heat from the torch here for these first light ups. And all right. There. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that is continuing to come out of here. Every time I turn it, a little bit more. There she goes. Nice. Open that all the way. And then a bit more pressure. Looking really good, and just like the guy said, it's a runner for sure. Just did a little bit of cleanup on the collar there, on the frame stand, and that's kind of it. Hang a new mantle on it, and away she goes. So oh yeah, and we did take the check valve out, gave that a bit of a clean, but that's all there is to it. Looking really good, burning really bright. with this mantle, I'm going to let it run for about a half an hour to make sure that it totally bakes in and retains its structural integrity. If you don't bake them in for a half an hour or so, they're going to be very wiggly and they're not going to stand up to shock or anything else like that. So anytime that you light a new one, make sure that you understand you're committing to about a 30-minute run time before you shut it off, so that way you don't end up with a weak mantle. Looks like I could probably do a little bit more polishing on this with this because it's I can see some dark streaks on it. But yeah, so that's it. That's the Canadian Model 335. They're very common up in Canada. So if you're ever up in Canada, grab one, have it shipped back or take it back, however you want to make that work. But it's a really cool lantern. They're really bright, 350 candle power, really bright. And not only that, but the 321, its older brother over there is also a really nice one. See, we're pulling up some more crud. There we go. But just a flip and it cleans right out. Yeah, as that generator gets a little bit of a run in, it's going to knock some stuff loose. And you know, I might actually put some of this Berryman's in there, which also helps to clean out any kind of crud and carbon in there, loosen that up. It might even make the generator easier to disassemble and clean, because it probably could use one. Again, these generators not easy to come by here in the States. Really can only order from old Coleman parts, and that's about it. But so there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you didn't. I don't know. But if you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button. You know, it's free. It doesn't cost a dime. It helps me out, helps the channel out, and always happy to see any sort of comments below. I always try to respond to them as best as I can. Maybe not as quickly as I can, but always like to be able to interact with the folks here. If you got any requests, anything you want to see, something you'd like to see me do, stick it in there too. I'll make sure that I'll find a way to get that in there, and always looking for new ideas and new things to do. So until next time, keep them lit.